This is a review of The Art of Tangled, and although it's hard to say with any real sense of objectivity, personally I think this is one of the best art of books for an animated film. The book is by Jeff Curti, who has written a number of really great books. He's a fantastic Disney author and historian. And even though this book doesn't necessarily feature a whole lot of text similar to other animated art books, but the actual text that is in here is a notch above the rest, and really shows the benefit of having a strong author working on even an art book. It's published by Chronicle Books, who have been doing the Disney Pixar books. Monsters, Inc., I think, was the first one in 2003 for Pixar, and then Disney finally started using Chronicle Books to publish their art books with Bolt. And since then, I think their books are really the ones that sort of typify an art of book in sort of the public mind. I think even if you've only had a passing experience with art books, you're probably at least somewhat familiar with these Disney Pixar Chronicle books, which in my mind have really sort of come to typify the standard for what an art book should be, particularly for an animated film. And for the most part, these art books published by Chronicle are always a really safe bet because they're very, very consistent. Like going back to 2003 with the very first The Art of Monsters, Inc., they really established a format and style for their animated art books, which still continues to this day. Although the downside of this level of consistency is that even though the books are always a really safe bet and are really great, unless the art style of that particular movie resonates with you, it kind of feels like once you've read one of them, you've read them all. They feel very sort of repetitious, and even though they look great lined up on a shelf, there's nothing really special about them individually beyond the actual content. Although another thing that's really cool about that level of consistency is that I feel like with these books, more than any other art books, you can make a decision on whether or not you like the book primarily just from looking at the flip through. So it's almost like, in a broad sense, they're all kind of the same book, and you just have to choose the one that has the overlay of the movie whose style you really like. At the start of the book, they talk a lot about trying to recreate a sort of classic Disney fairy tale, but with more of a modern sensibility and techniques, and it really shows in this book, much more than other films that are somewhat similar, like, say, Brave or even Frozen. Just the overall art direction and look and color palette for this concept art for this movie is just so beautiful. I mean, I couldn't even begin to try and pick out some of my favorite pieces. There's just way too many. I mean, I couldn't even really pick out many of my favorite artists. They really just had an all-star art team working on this movie who were just firing on all cylinders. But if I had to pick one, I think Claire Keane really stole the show in this one. Just on the second page of this book, on the title page, there's this spread of her design for Rapunzel's mural that she paints in her tower, and it's just so great. I spent so long looking at all the details on that, and then this book has so much of Claire Keane's work, and it's just stunning. And then just to go back to the text that appears within the book, like I said, this book actually features text that is certainly a notch above other art of animated books. So as you go through, at the start of each section, there'll be a paragraph or two that touches on not only the development and history of the making of the movie, but also a lot of really great information about inspirations for the movie. Things like the way shapes are used in Cinderella and how they influenced how the curves and lines and certain shapes in that movie directly influenced and became sort of like a style guide for Tangled. And it's just stuff like that I don't feel you typically see in a lot of art books, and it was just really great, really informative stuff that helps you appreciate the work that went into it even more. And just how these animated films serve to influence each other, and how art history serves to influence these films. And I'll tell you one of my favorite things about this book, there is nary a screenshot to be found. Now, obviously, stills taken from the movie can be useful in books to illustrate certain points or compare things how they translated to screen. But in a book like this, that is not necessarily the thickest art book, it's really great to see that everything in here is just 100% dedicated to the art. And on top of that, I was just so impressed by the amount of art they managed to cram into this book, because like I said, it doesn't necessarily have the longest page length, but there is zero wasted space in this book. Everything is sized appropriately. The layout, everything comes together so well and just gives that feel of beautiful, well-designed books that I sort of associate with Chronicle books. So like I said, more so than with a lot of other art and making of books, these Disney Pixar books, you can really make the decision based on whether or not the actual style and artwork you're seeing here speak to you. And so if you do like what you're seeing in The Art of Tangled, then I can definitely give it my highest recommendation, because I really find it to be one of the best art of books for an animated film.